Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for checking out the video and welcome to Keepin'it Reel Fishing here on the water. Excuse my hair. This was a mohawk, but I've been wearing my my hat cam all day, so it's whatever it looks like. I can't see myself. So we're talking about Daiwa's newest Tatula. We're talking about the Tatula CT. And the main thing here, guys, is the CT is just a compact version of the previous generation Tatula. Previous generation Tatula was a great reel, and I think they're going to be running them concurrently. I'm not sure. I still see that the Tatula's on the site. I still see them for sale everywhere. I think they may just have a larger and a smaller version, but we'll see how that plays out. But if you've used one of those, if you've handled one, fished it, whatever, nothing has changed save for the size. Even the spool holds the same amount of line. Dimensionally, the spool is a little bit more narrow, but to compensate, they made the spool actually a little bit deeper. So it even holds the same amount of line in a little bit of a more compact reel. The original Tatula was a great reel because it brought us a very robust reel. It has a aluminum frame, so this middle portion is aluminum. The side plate here, the handle side plate, is also aluminum. And they even spoke about it. I remember when the first one came out, the tolerances. I went to a trade show and they had like these pieces matching up, and they made a big deal of how tight the tolerances were on the Tatula. You're never going to get any play. It's really well built, and that's the case. So the one caveat though with the original Tatula, and I didn't experience this, but a lot of people thought it was kind of large. When they held it, they said it was just kind of bigger than it needed to be. And so Daiwa, kudos to them, they addressed it. So here we have same reel, just a little bit more compact. This one you see here, guys, has this kind of funky red styling to it, and that's how you know when you're looking at the Type R version. There's a standard Tatula CT, and then you have the Type R. I'll just let you know briefly what those differences are. The Type R version, aside from the aesthetics, the visuals, it's going to give you a Zion star drag. So that star drag right there is kind of like that carbon material, very similar to Shimano uses the CI4 material, same kind of thing. Strong and very light. They save a little bit of weight there. It's like a fraction of a gram. So the star drag is different. On the regular CT, it's just a regular plastic star drag. The spool on both of them dimensionally is the same, but this spool is a fraction lighter. It's using a little bit of a different aluminum, so it's just marginally lighter. And it's really light too. That's why I'm saying marginally. I want to say it's like half a gram. So I'm not sure if that's going to play out in terms of any perceived casting distance. But it is a different spool. The main thing I think that separates them, aside from the visuals, performance-wise, is the bearings. Same amount of bearings, but on the Type R version, the spool bearings, the one on either side that the spool actually spins on, these are corrosion-resistant ball bearings. And in addition to that, I can't confirm this, but it has really, really good free spool. Like when you loosen everything up and you just spin it, it spins a really long time. And I'm thinking that not only are they corrosion resistant, I'm thinking they might be like a higher end, maybe ABEC 5 or ABEC 7 Japanese bearing. I'm just speculating there, but it spins really well. So that's performance-wise really the only thing you're getting with the Type R. The star drag's not going to do anything for you. The spool, I really don't see that as changing. You're fishing out there. It's really those bearings. So you may be asking yourself, should I pony up the money for the Type R, or should I just get the standard CT and put in some ceramic bearings or just some upgrade bearings? It's entirely up to you. I think a lot of people are going to like the look of this one. It has that very striking red. And then when you match it up to, I happen to have it on, I wasn't trying to do this, but my Daiwa Ardito is actually a travel rod, has some red accents. So if you guys are into the visuals, you can get yourself a really sharp looking rod and reel combo if you like those red accents there. Let's talk a little bit briefly on actually fishing it. There's no particular standout feature. And that's not to say that it's negative, guys. It just works. It just works. It's not that it casts further than my other reels. It's not any smoother than my other reels. I find that reels within a certain price category all kind of behave the same. Unless you go into a very, very high-end reel, or unless you go into a really, really cheap reel. But everything, God, even going into probably like the $100 reel now, all the way up to the $200 reels, they kind of perform the same. They're all good. They're all pretty smooth nowadays. They all cast really well. They have decent brake, even though they all have different braking systems, they all, work fine. And this falls right into that category of what a lot of people often refer to as a workhorse reel. If you're a tournament fisherman and you want to have a whole lineup of the same reel so that it doesn't feel different every time you grab one of your setups, this is a good option. It's that kind of do everything reel. It's kind of like the 7-foot medium heavy fast action of reels. It holds enough line, it casts far enough, it's strong enough, it's going to do pretty much everything you need it to do, save for the specialty techniques. Like if you want to cast really, really lightweight stuff, you need to move into a finesse bait caster or spinning reel. If you guys like chucking the swim baits, you know you're going to need a larger reel with some more line capacity for those heavier gauge lines. But for probably 90% of applications out there, guys, if you just, whatever your application is, if it's frogging or crankbaits, punching, it doesn't really matter. This reel is going to fit the bill. Has adequate drag to it. It's just a great all-around reel. I've really enjoyed using it. I have allocated this, I will say this, I have allocated this one, and previous T-Wing, I had the, what is it, the T3, the original one with the pop-up hood, and I like allocating these to pitching, very specifically because what I find is when I'm using a heavier gauge plastic line, and by that I mean a heavy copolymer or a heavy fluorocarbon, they're notorious for having a lot of memory and wanting to coil. They're very stiff and they want to kind of jump off the spool. If you're using 20 or even 25-pound test, if you're really going into heavy stuff, what I have found is using those type of lines with a traditional level wind, the ones that are pretty small, I get more backlashes than when I use it on the T-Wing system. And to me that just kind of makes sense. And this is the one real advantage that I think that T-Wing there gives you. Is not so much in casting distance. I don't see that. I find it a little bit easier to cast, but I don't feel like I get any more distance. But where it does pay dividends is pitching those very stout and those very stiff lines, because rather than them reaching a small bottleneck and they're inherent, you know, they want to kind of coil up and they have all that memory, you have a very wide opening now for that line to usher out of. And I find that pitching these, I get far fewer backlashes using the T-Wing system. So most of my testing has been in pitching. I've been using it as a jig rod. But I've also threw a different line on there, a little bit of a lower test, and I tried just doing everything with it. Spinnerbaits, chatterbaits, crankbaits, and to that end, it casts very well. Distance-wise, it's good. Braking system is really good. I'm a big fan of the Daiwa MagForce system. You never have to open up the side plate. There's no chance of anything getting in. There's no chance of you dropping the side plate. Quick adjustments made on the side, and it works really, really well. So that's it, guys. That's it. This went longer than I thought. There's still a tabletop if you guys want to check that out. But anyway, guys, Tatula CT, the Type R version, great do everything reel. And yeah, that's it, guys. So if you're interested, we got the tabletop following. Otherwise, if you have any questions, just shoot them down below in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, what's going on? Thanks for checking out the video and welcome to Keeping It Real Fishing. Tonight we're taking a look at the new hot release from Daiwa. This is the compact line of Tatulas. And this one here is the Type R, as you can see, bathed in that racing red, distinguishing it from the non-Type R Tatula CT. There are two variants. So guys, as you can see, I don't have any line on it yet. This is a new acquisition for me. We're going to be taking a close look at it here at the tabletop tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what distinguishes the Type R from the standard CT, and also what distinguishes the new CT series from the previous generation of Tatula reels. So let's take a look. Okay, let's just put that to the side for a second. Quick once over on the specs, guys. This is the same stuff you'll get from their site, but let's just take a look. It has the T-Wing system. That's one of the main draws of pretty much all the new Daiwa reels. Most of them, or maybe even all of them, are moving to the T-Wing system. What do we have here? The Ultimate Tournament Drag. It's just their fancy name for their drag system. The braking system is a magnetic system, and it's the MagForce Z. And that right there, CRBB, refers to the two corrosion-resistant ball bearings. That's one of the features that distinguishes it from the standard CT. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I elected to get it in a 7:3-to-1 ratio, and that one falls in the middle. There's one that's a little bit slower. It's a 6 to something, maybe a 6:3-to-1, and there's a faster one. I think it's an 8:1-to-1. There's your weight, 7.2 ounces. Maximum drag, 13.2. Here's the inches per turn. So these two kind of correlate to each other. The 7:3-to-1 is going to give you 30.5 inches per single turn of the crank. You have 7 ball bearings, 2 of which are the corrosion resistant ball bearings I was just referring to. Those are the spool bearings. And there's also the anti-reverse, anti-roll bearing located right there. You can see your capacities there for 12, 14, and 16 pound test. Okay. And that's pretty much it, guys. Nothing fancy on the inside. Daiwa has a habit of not giving you a whole heck of a lot. Different than Shimano, which sometimes gives you oil, and well, Shimano gives you the little brake pads for the VBS and now the SVS system. Daiwa was pretty straightforward, just the instructions. One thing I will call your attention to, though, guys, if this is your new baitcaster for you, read these instructions. One of the things I found interesting, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about later, was the setup. And this, to me, is new. They didn't always say this. The way to set up the spool tension knob and the mag force. It's not what you'll see in pretty much every video here on YouTube on how to set up a baitcaster. It's actually very different. So I was actually playing around with it on my other Daiwas. I haven't seen a difference in casting distance, but they do have a different procedure here for setting that up. But anyway, if you guys are new, definitely check out the manual. It's going to give you everything you need to know about how to use your baitcaster. And then for you guys who are acclimated, if you need to replace any parts, usual stuff in the breakdown, guys. You got your exploded parts view, and you could order whatever part you need to. Or if you're taking apart your reel for service, you know the sequence by which the parts go back into place. So, standard fare with that. Let's just get that stuff out of the way, and let's focus on the reel. So, there we go. Tatula CT Type R. Alright, everybody, so here we go. The Daiwa Tatula Type R. Let's work our way from the left. The diameter here on this handle is a 90mm handle. In from there, you can see that the nut retainer here, that red piece, as well as this magforce piece here, are red. And the reason I call your attention to that is because these change colors, or they don't change colors, but they're different colors based on the model that you get. So on this one here, on the 7:3:1, these pieces are red, these two. If you go down to the 6-ratio reel, these are going to be in a gold color. And if you step up to the very fast one, the 8, I think the 8:1:1, they're in a violet kind of purple color. And that's kind of nice, because if you're, say you're a tournament angler, you're someone who has acquired a few of these, you have a lot in your boat or on your deck or something, you could look down and very readily see what is the speed of the reel. You don't actually have to look at that little thing on the side there. You could just notice it by color. Daiwa's been doing this for some time now on a number of their reels, and it's a nice feature. Moving in from there, we have a Zion star drag, and this is one of the things that distinguishes this from the standard CT, is the composition of the star drag. Dimensionally, it's the same, but it's using Daiwa's Zion material, which, if we get into the light, you could probably see it's a carbon fiber, some kind of composite carbon fiber. Very similar, if not the same, as Shimano uses the CR4 material. Right, so basically it's very strong and it's very light. You know, however much you save on a star drag, just a couple grams probably. Has a nice feel to it, has some very positive and metallic sounding clicks. It's very nice to interface with. The standard CT, we're going to kind of jump back and forth. I don't have one here, but I've read up on it and I've seen them in person. It's just a regular plastic star drag. Don't look at that as a point of liability. It's not as though star drags break. I've really never even heard of that. But you know, guys, they need some things to distinguish the price increase between this model and the standard CT. So they say it's a little bit lighter, and you have a little bit of visual flair. You know, in addition to the obvious, all the red, you have this kind of carbon fiber staring at you there. So that's one of the two, or not two, one of the few differences between this and the standard CT. Moving from there, we have the red aluminum cast control knob. It does not click, but what I like about it is it has very good retention. I always prefer when manufacturers make the cast control knob a little too hard to move as opposed to too easy. And the reason being is because I would much rather, if I accidentally brush up against it, if say I hook into a massive fish or even the wrong species where I am, I could hook into a muskie, and if I have to really open up that drag quick, your hands are just going to be flying, and I don't want to, you know, adjust this accidentally. This one, like I said, does not click, but it's the same kind of idea. On the ones that click puts it into a detent. It makes it a little bit less likely to knock out of place. You know, you've set it up for a particular lure and weight and everything else. You don't want it to move. That'll mess up your next cast, either giving you a backlash or making it not go very far. So having ones with extra retention is, in my opinion, is always a good thing, as opposed to those that are too loose. And this has great retention. The main body, the main frame of the reel, everything you see in red is aluminum. And actually the whole main frame here, this whole center portion, not the thumb bar, but going to the bottom here, this is all aluminum. The handle side plate is aluminum. That's pretty nice too, because a lot of manufacturers are moving to aluminum center frames and composites on both sides. And I'm not suggesting that your reel is going to flex or a lot of the things that you'll see implied from the manufacturers, but I just, you know, for the weight, I mean, aluminum is not heavy. I'm someone who just prefers to have as much metal in my reel as I can. This reel comes in again at 7.2 ounces, so you know it's not super lightweight. You know, there is that trend to have things ultra lightweight, but it's definitely not heavy either. And truthfully, I think reels that are a little bit heavier, kind of in the 7 ounce plus range, actually balance better on most rods. Let's move along. The spool. The spool is an A7075 aluminum, and Daiwa calls your attention to that because that's another one of the features that distinguish the Type R from the standard CT. This spool is just a fraction lighter than the standard CTs. I want to say, I read it, I think, on one of Daiwa's international sites, that it's 0.1 ounces less heavy. You know, it's 0.1 ounces lighter. How will that translate into casting? Well, heavy lures, obviously no difference. Perhaps your very lightweight lures, a little bit of difference. I couldn't really tell you guys. I don't deal in like the very lightweight, like the 1/16, the 1/8 ounce stuff. But I would think if you're going to be using stuff like that, you'd probably be looking at a dedicated finesse reel with a very, very shallow spool and not this reel. But again, they have to differentiate these two reels and justify that price point. So we have a difference here in the metal composition of the spool. It's a little bit of a different aluminum. There's the T-wing system, and that's really the calling card of the Tatula series, and actually the whole Daiwa line now. Even up to the Stees, we've seen the T-wing system implemented, which I'm very happy about. Rare are the genuine advancements that we see in fishing. Seems like for every 99 things that come out, it's a lot of BS. You know, that's my whole philosophy with keeping it real. And every once in a while, though, we see true engineering advantages. Stands to reason, guys. You have this line coming off, and it's going to be coming from either side, just by the way it's wound. Of course, it's wound along the whole spool. And when it's coming from the sides, creating those sharp angles, it makes sense to have a wider opening for it to get out of. Now, let's also be honest here. There are so many reels. The vast majority of reels do not have the T-wing system, right? Every other manufacturer, aside from Daiwa, does not have it. And all those reels work just fine. However, it's definitely not a negative. I will just chime in with my own experiences, though. I don't find that the T-wing system casts further. I find that it casts a little bit easier, though. I don't have to put in quite as much effort to achieve the same distances. Of course, there's a lot of variables there with the braking system and everything else, but in general, I think that reduction in friction allows you to cast a little bit easier, but not further. Where I do think this really is an advantage, though, a clear advantage, is if you're someone who does a lot of pitching with heavy fluorocarbons or copolymers. Like if you're using something like 20-pound P-line or 20 or 25-pound, fluorocarbons, it's a stiff line. It has a lot of memory, it wants to coil, and I have had more than a few instances of my line kind of bunching up because my line or my level wind, not on a T-wing system, but on other reels that don't utilize it, my level wind is all the way to one side, and I go to do a little pitch, and maybe I didn't get quite enough behind it such that the weight of the lure doesn't usher out that line fast enough, and it builds up right here. That stiff line gets caught up trying to exit. I think that is one of the great advantages of this system is when you're using the stiff lines, they have a very large opening in which they can get out. So we have the T-wing system. Lengthy discussion there on that. What else do we have? Distinguishing this between the standard CT guys is we also have those spool bearings. We were looking at that on the box, those 2 corrosion resistant spool bearings. That's a nice feature, and that's really, I think, the one thing you're really paying for on this reel. This isn't a big deal. The star drag, I don't think the spool's a big deal. The color, right, you're going to get this very red accents. That's strictly an opinion thing. A lot of people are going to love the way it looks, and some people are going to think it's a little bit hokey. I mean, honestly, I can almost look at this and say it looks like an inexpensive reel. It seems like red is the default color. When any manufacturer wants to accent their reel, they always go to red, and I think a lot of people think it's just being played out a little bit. But again, guys, that's strictly aesthetics, right? That's just looks. It has no bearing on anything else. But the spool bearings, coming back to that, that's really, I think, the thing that you're paying for with this. We do have a kind of a marketed price increase. Standard CT, $129. Type R, $179. Currently, these just came out, so of course these are going to be full retail most places. So for $50, can you get a Type R, you know, based on what the differences are? Of course you can. What I would say is just put in some ABEX 7 bearings, stainless steel, or go for some ceramic bearings, something like Boca bearings or Hogtech. They make some very, very good, inexpensive bearings, $8 a piece. And you can get not only corrosion-resistant ball bearings, but corrosion-proof because the bearings are actually ceramic. But, you know, guys, it's definitely a looker, and it has those other small features. So the Type R, I don't think it lives up to the designation. When I hear Type R, I'm looking for something that's really kind of balls to the wall, and, you know, they pulled out all the stops. I'm looking for a real kind of like racing variant, so to speak. And this is just marginal, mild increases. Really, the thing that they're doing is the visuals, giving you all that red. But it is a solid reel overall. Next, guys, I know this is going a while. This is going to be a thorough review, so if you're interested, stay tuned. Next, we're going to compare it to the previous generation Tatulas and see what the differences are there. Okay, there we go. You see I got a few of those there. These are the Tatula HDs, which are the ones that have the deeper spool. Magnificent reel. I love it so much that I actually picked up a second, which is a rarity for me. Normally I don't double up on reels, but I absolutely love these. This is the JDM version. Has those kind of gold accents. I have a full video review on this reel, so if you're interested, you could look at some of my past videos and check that out. But we'll get him out of the way and just keep one present. This is the domestic version. And yeah, so let's take a look. Right, CT is because so many people were saying that they loved the Tatula, but it felt big in hand. Now, to me, guys, I don't know. I have reels of all sizes, and I don't think about it. When I'm fishing, I'm just fishing, and the reel just disappears. I just don't think about it. I think I have kind of average to large size hands, so maybe that's why. If you have smaller hands, this may play more of a role for you. But let's look at that difference in size, right? Because they created a whole new series of reels kind of to address it. Let's do them like this first. Now you'll notice the characteristic shape of the reel has not changed. You see how it tapers as it goes towards the rear of the reel, and it kind of flails out and goes more outward as it approaches the mag force knob. Same exact lines, but just a little bit more compact. Now as you look at it here, you might say, man, there's no difference. They're the same. But this is where videos and social media help, guys. This is what I want to impart to you. When I'm fishing this reel, like I said, I don't think about it. It doesn't feel big to me, and I love this reel. However, when I'm holding this, even here, not on a rod, and I go from this, and then I put this in my hand, night and day. It's a night and day difference. I know it doesn't look that big, but those subtle, just, you know, constricting it a little bit, a couple millimeters here, a couple millimeters there, in hand, it is a huge difference. I mean, if you blindfolded me and put one in this hand, or, you know, if I held one and then the other, I would think they were just totally different in terms of actually their size. And, you know, looking at them is deceiving. They don't look that different. But in hand, if you were somebody who otherwise liked this reel, but you held off because you always thought it was big, you know, definitely try it out in the store for yourself. But I can guarantee you that when you pick this up, you're going to say, wow, I mean, it is compact. It does feel very small in hand. Apart from that, guys, the other real difference between these, I forget the exact drag settings. This one's 13.2. I forget what this was. I think it's similar in that 13-pound range. No big difference there. this is a different size handle, but that doesn't apply because this is the HDs. The HD goes with a 100mm crank. The other thing that happened though, because they kind of compressed it, is the spool shrank a little bit in the width dimension. But they make a big deal in their, what do they call it, the not the Type R, the Project T, right? They have a whole series of videos here on YouTube, the Project T videos. And the engineers over in Japan talk about this, and that they didn't sacrifice any line capacity. So rather than the spool being as wide, they had to narrow the spool a little bit, but they made it, of course, then just a little bit deeper to hold the same amount of line. Other things have changed. You can see the T-wing system on the old one, or maybe you can't. Maybe this is a better angle. The T-wing system has actually shrunk. The actual mechanism there. Here is wider than the new one, but it's kind of proportional. You had a wider spool for a wider T-wing. Here you've narrowed the spool, right? So you still have a lot of space when you depress that system, but it doesn't have to be quite as wide because you have it on a narrower spool. That's pretty much it, guys. The real thing is the compact. That's what you're getting into with the new series. So let's get this one out of the way, and just one or two more things I want to touch on, and then I'll be fishing it for a couple weeks and I'll report back to you guys on my findings. One of the other things I just want to mention before I go, guys, you see how that spins? Now I have everything open here. I got the this backed off, and I got the mag force all the way off. So what you're seeing there is what Daiwa calls their air rotation. And let me just comment on this for a second. Daiwa used to have this really cool feeling on their older models, like even the last generation Zillions, and going back to the TDZs, and some of the stuff that really, you know, kind of their flagship reels from years gone by. People loved the fact that it felt super smooth but connected. It's hard to describe, but you felt like you could feel the entire innards of the reel, but it was silky smooth. Seems like manufacturers are getting away from that. This is ridiculously smooth. You can see it just spins, and I can feel it in my hand, in this hand here, just how effortless it's spinning, but you're not connected anymore. Very reminiscent of some Luz models. Like I noticed this, I have a Luz BB1 Pro from a couple years ago. Same thing, it spins, it's crazy smooth, you don't feel anything on the inside. Now, does any of that matter? Of course not. I mean, that's not going to change your fishing. I'm just mentioning that for those of you guys out there who are, you know, the enthusiasts and you wonder about these things. That kind of connected feeling is not present here. Doesn't make it, you know, any less of a good reel, but just so you know. One last thing, guys, let's crack her open, take a look at that mag force, and I just want to show you the spool design. This is a mag force Z configuration, and that's another topic. If you guys are interested in how mag force works, a couple years ago I did a video just on mag force and examining the different types of mag force that Daiwa utilizes. Not a whole lot's changed. You have the same basic innards there, your magnetic structures in there, and as you spin this wheel, you're changing the poles, the north and south poles, to affect more force around this inductor. That gold piece there resides and spins in this kind of channel there. There's one of your bearings, by the way, right there. Very easy to change. And let's take the spool out. You can see that this one does not have the free-floating spool. The free-floating spools, you don't see this, or not that you don't see it, but it's not there. The spindle would stop right where my thumbs are pressing it. So this one has the spindle going all the way, the axle goes all the way through, like we see in a lot of Shimano's. And the other thing though is it doesn't have a ball bearing supporting the pinion. You can always tell, because when you reel it, you're going to hear that pinion rubbing a little bit in there. That pinion being present is what Shimano likes to refer to as the X-ship system. It gives support to that bearing. Does it make a real difference out on the water? Not really, but just so you know, it does not have that bearing in place. And looking at the spool here, guys, the Magforce Z, the hallmark of this is that that little inductor there is spring-loaded, and this guy moves in and out of this magnetic field based on RPM. So it's very, very cool. As the spool accelerates and you need more braking, centrifugal force is going to force this into the braking field more, effectively controlling your cast. And as your spool starts to slow, it naturally is going to retract, and allow you to get a little bit more distance because the brakes or the magnetic force is easing off. So that is the MagForce Z system. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it. That's the innards, and I think we covered everything. How it compares to the standard CT and how it compares to the previous generation Tatulas. And I know that was a lot of information, but that's typically what you get with my reviews. So I'm going to take it to the water now. I'm going to try a couple different types of line on it. I'm going to do that flipping and pitching that I was mentioning. Test that T-wing system there, make sure I have no problems with the heavier fluorocarbons and such. And I'll report back to you and let you know how the new, more compact version of the Tatula performs out on the water.